This is the Draft Season Podcast, and we are back with another episode. We got a big timer in the building, one of the best on Draft Twitter. We'll get to that in a second. We are back. Raz will be joining us in a moment, but without further ado, we do have a very special guest. Like I said, one of the people I respect most in this field. Does a lot of great content, and we're gonna have a really good conversation. Joining us on today's show is CJ Marchesani. CJ, did I say that right? I hope I didn't butcher
Nah,
the
you got
name.
it. You got
I
it.
got it. Creator of Roll Call Sports Network, definitely checking it out. Contributor to the Steppy and does all type of scouting stuff. CJ, my man, once again, thanks a million for hopping on today.
Absolutely.
Really respect the work that you do over here, man, and we're gonna have a really good conversation. But how you doing this morning, man? We doing this real early, so apologies if there's any like cobwebs that we're shaking off as we do get into this content. But how you doing this morning, bro?
Yeah, there definitely will be. I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to digging into all this stuff.
Yeah, man, and like I said, CJ, definitely make sure you guys are checking out the content that he guys does do. You always got to respect the people that are pushing the bar forward and really motivating. Because whenever I see people just doing incredible work, it always puts that battery in my personal back to really start even creating better content. But one of the main appetizers that we do start off all of our guests on the show is just like quick bio, so you can let the people know how you got into the industry and how you do other things. We also do start off with like your earliest sports memories, to where it's just like we're all sports junkies on this. Anybody that checks out the pod and everything, but just as a younger, we all have that point of demarcation to where it's just like that first memory as a kid, to where it's just like, yo, I love sports, and whether it's playing it, learning more about the games. What was those moments for you when you were young, to where particularly with the draft? And I know we spoke about it a little bit off camera in terms of like those first drafts that really got you into it. But in general, man, like especially your Philly kid, like what were the first sports memories that really like got your eye and your attention?
Yeah, they're all Philly related. The first basketball one was Allen Iverson with my mom. Me and my mom used to stay up and watch or not stay up. I was like 6 or 7, so it was stay up for the games and sit on the couch and watch Allen Iverson just take on the whole world by himself without any teammates. And then beyond that, the first one that was really just like I'm not going to be able to do my life without having sports in it were the Phils World Series runs, the
Mm.
the
Shouts to Ryan
2008
Howard.
run.
Shouts
Yeah,
to Ryan
shouts to
Howard.
Ryan
Yeah.
Howard. Yeah, there's like 2007, 2008 Phillies teams were just a blast, and same thing. It would just stay up all night watching the games, be tired in school the next morning, and the Philly sports are where my roots lay. So those are definitely where I fell in love with sports.
Yeah, man. It's always funny because I had like similar thoughts, especially like when you're young, man, and like I remember like I think we're kind of in the same age group, but like I like especially like as a young kid and like not being able like I still have like a bedtime, but I remember like sneaking to go watch, like whether it was like I know like one of my first like favorite teams that I got to watch like growing up in New York, especially like when those Nets teams made those finals. So I guess this is like after like shout out to Iverson stepping over Ty Lue, but yeah, man, it's just like it just that just brought back so many memories of just like sneaking to watch the games, or like come on, you can't stay up to watch this whole game, or just all of that stuff. But yeah, man, pretty dope stuff. But yeah, getting into just some draft stuff, because we're about 10 days out from the draft and everything. So rumors are flying, a lot of stuff, a lot of background, just like workouts with NBA teams going on for these scouts. I mean, for these kids. So we're about like 10 days out for you. What would you say are like the most interesting subplots that you're following under these last 10 days? We'll get into like some of the other more interesting aspects of the actual draft, but from 10 days out, and I guess when you do reach this point of just like kind of exhaustion of like scouting this class for at least a year plus at this point, getting your priors ready, and just doing like second and third watches of these guys. But what's the most interesting subplot for you? I think like when it comes to the actual draft, kind of seems like the draft is starting at like possibly like 2 or 3 before things
Yeah.
get really interesting. But 10 days out, what has your most attention at this point of the cycle?
I think that I think that we have kind of beat to death at this point, like the top 13, 14 guys, right? Like I think everybody really is locked on who's most likely going to go there. I think the interesting thing for me comes like mid to late first round, and it's going to be what breaks first? Like, are our teams going to value those young kids and the Caleb Houstons and Peyton Watsons of the world, or are they going to go the other way and try to lock in production in a class that like hasn't doesn't have too many young freshman contributors? It's that balance there. When are they going to break and start taking the risks on guys like PBJ, Pat Baldwin Jr., or are they going to value maybe more collegiate production or actual like tangible stuff over the upside of those guys?
Well, we got Raz on the pod. Raz CJ Raz.
Nice to meet you. Sorry for the delay. Technical
I got you, man.
difficulties this morning, man. How
No
are you?
worries. I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no,
uh,
no problem.
but yeah, Raz, we were just kind of talking about like the most interesting subplots of the draft, or like most interesting things that you have your eyes on about 10 days out. So I mean, CJ, for you at least, just talking a little bit more about the class. Yeah, we've spoken about the top of the draft, and not to bemoan that point, but from a macro perspective and a 15,000 foot like view of it, what do you think is the strength of this class? I think if you talk about even like last year, where the depth of that crop of kids were so incredible, to where like you had a lot of the guys that went early second, mid to late second, that were able to come in and contribute. And so if you had to just from your perspective, what would you say is the strength of this class? Because every class is different. We speak about this a lot in terms of the ROI on draft picks not being the same every year. And it's kind of just like
Yeah.
a this thing that people like, oh, we have a number one pick, then that means you're going to get an all-star. And not really the perspective that I take on my class, because every group of kids is different. But for you at least, what do you think is the strength of this class in general from team's perspective?
I think that there is an almost flatness to the draft, right? So it's not even really a strength as much as teams selecting after, I don't even three, after we get the top three, four guys out of the way, there are really big tiers. There are plenty of space for teams to sit in a tier and feel like they can quote unquote reach on a guy, but it's not really reaching. Like it's a flat enough tier that you could just stand still, get your guy. I'm not sure how much trading back there will be, because I don't know if there are going to be too many teams that are looking to like trade up to the top of tiers when we have tiers that are 12, 13 guys long, that you can just kind of stay home, chill, get your guy, and move from there. So I think it might be a relatively quiet draft from the trade front, just because there's, besides the teams that have like Oklahoma City that may need to consolidate their picks a little bit. I think that we might see a little bit less trades than usual because the value is so flat in between tiers.
I got a question for you. Do you think, there will be a lot of teams drafting for sheer best player available, or will it be a team need draft? Because I feel like there are some teams in that the middle of the first round that have specific needs. But once you start getting late into the lottery and right outside of the lottery, maybe a lot of those needs were taken ahead of you. So do you see a lot of people either? Well, you say you don't see people trading back. You don't see teams trading back, but like, is it going to be a best player available draft?
I think it's going to be, I'm a best player available kind of guy, but I think it's
Okay.
going to be closer to a team fit kind of draft, just
Okay.
because if you're sitting at a spot and you have, I don't know, five guys on your board as roundabout the best five players available, but the value is kind of flat in between them. There's not like two or three sticking head and shoulders above the rest. You can feel a little bit better about picking the best fit out of those five, because they're all like roundabout the same best player available, if you will. I think because it's not and this is after probably 12 for me. I think that there aren't really very many guys head and shoulders above everybody else after 12. So you can kind of chill, take your best fit, add to your roster without necessarily having to feel that mechanical best player available thing that I think comes with that.
So as I'll present the same question to you as well, Raz, but like 10 days out, what is the most interesting subplot? What like is tickling that fancy for you about like where things could really go left on draft night?
I mean, for me, it's the point guards. As I look at the landscape right now in the NBA, we know this is a point guard league. This is a guard heavy league. You need a lead guard, a lead scoring guard at this point. It's not even the traditional sense of the point guard where we're used to people setting up. We want the playmaker, but we want somebody that's also be able to go downhill and hit that open shot as well. And I need to see who's going to reach on a point guard. And from all accounts, it seems like you guys are saying that everything's going to be a pretty quiet draft night, and things will go as the teams need, based on their boards. But I mean, Kennedy Chandler and Ty Washington, when I first started this draft process, were the two that I was looking at, and I don't see them in the lottery. You know what I'm saying? I feel like they've fallen out of the lottery. Ty might sneak in. You know what I'm saying? So it's like who's going to reach on that point guard, that traditional point guard? Obviously, you have Dyson Daniels, who you could turn into a point guard, but for me right now, he's still an off guard. That kind of secondary ball handler. So I'm just waiting to see which team is going to reach on getting their point guard of the future.
I mean, we might as well just get into it. One of the rundown points that we had. So, I mean, CJ, for you at least, because I had this thought experiment of just like trying to compare this crop of point guards to just like the last 5 years or whatever. And it's not the strongest crop, but what do you make of the point guard class in general? I know obviously Scoot is on the periphery for next year, but we're not there just yet before we get into Scoot. But for you at least, and if you were a point guard heavy team, or a needy team, I should say, and somebody that has their eyes on these point guards, and yeah, at least the non-Ivy guys, because I think we would all probably agree that he's in a tier of his own when it comes to what he could be at the NBA level. But for these guys at least, and when it comes to just theorizing and forecasting the point guards in this class, who do you think really has that chance to at least make the biggest impact once they do get to the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I were a point guard needy team, I'd be pretty upset that this was the team, or that this was the year I was in the lottery. Like we're talking about, the Knicks always need a point guard. I think it's a rough one for that. And for a lot of the things that we just talked about, like these guys that we thought at the beginning of the year were like the cream of the crop point guard class, they're not really pure point guards. Like Kennedy Chandler is one of my favorites. He's a little bit more defensive minded. I don't think that he's a guy that you're going to want with the ball in his hands every time. And honestly, the more that I see Ty play, the more I kind of think he's just a wing. Like in that Lonzo mold where he's not getting all the way to the rim. I think the primary role, we talked about that pure point guard and how, like 10 years ago, the primary role for a point guard was to distribute, right? Like get all the other guys involved. I think the primary role of a point guard in today's NBA is to get paint touches. Like you got to break down the defense. You got to set things into rotation. You got to get to the rim and work things from there. And Ty doesn't really have that third, fourth, fifth dribble all the way to the rim. He can get to the pull-up a little bit. He actually can get to the pull-up really well. But he doesn't take that fourth, fifth dribble to collapse the defense, start the rotation, get everybody moving. So I think that this is a relatively weak point guard class. I think my favorite kind of swing at that is Blake Wesley, because he has the tools. He has the rim pressure that I really like to see for a point guard. But he's not there yet. He's a ways away. He was surrounded by 4 seniors this year. And it's good that they trusted him with the ball in his hands, and he got to have a lot of this responsibility. But he needs to get his efficiency up to really have that confidence in him doing it at the NBA level. So right now, after Ivy, I think it's kind of tough to, like we're talking about, like take the point guard that fits, because I'm not really sure that there's necessarily a guy here that you can project being a starting point guard in the NBA for sure, considering how high of a threshold that is and how high of a level the guys in the league playing that position are at right now.
I mean, Raz, I'll shoot it to you because one of the breakdowns that we actually meant to get to was on Ty actually. So I mean, you got a chance to watch Ty last summer at the Iverson Classic, obviously. And he's one of those guys. So I mean, I actually tweeted this over the weekend because I said Calipari can't keep getting away with this. I mean, I no offense to Severe Wheeler. I mean, who he did improve since his Georgia days. I mean, shout out to the Anthony Edwards Georgia team that he was on. But I wish we could have seen more Ty in a lead ball capability type of role. And it's kind of interesting because I think when you do talk about Tata and what he's actually going to be doing in the NBA level. Because yeah, like you did say, CJ, I kind of got frustrated watching the tape, just in terms of because he's quick, but he's more quick than like a pure like blazer or athletic. And I kind of struggle with is he I think his defense is actually better than I was expecting. I think he's actually pretty good. I think he's going to have be able to like close out on shooters pretty well and move his feet effectively to possibly guard point of attack if you need him to. Even though that's not really what Kyle had him doing on defense. He was more of like that off ball wing, like you said. But yeah, it was kind of just like I love a good floater, and we spoke about Dyson Daniels probably having one of the best float games in this class, and just those runners to where you can have an extended runner, and it kind of reminded me of somebody else like a LaMelo a couple years ago who had that extremely good floater to where it's just like he would take floaters as like a jump shot from like 17 feet sometimes, and it's just like it's kind of amazing. But like I think for me in like a floater and just like if you can make that shot, I kind of see it as a possible indicator of long-term shooting capabilities. So I guess that's a plus for him. And also the shooting volume wasn't as high as you wanted to see from a guy like Tata, even though I don't think there's really much questions to be had about his long-term shot. But what did you make of the Tata tape, at least, Raz?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of high school, I was very high on Tata, and like you said, I saw him at the Iverson Round Ball Classic, and he could shoot that. He like his shooting touch is incredible. And to your point, I was frustrated with Cal just because of the I don't he doesn't it's hard to say he over recruits, right? Because he gets the talent he needs to get. But like sometimes those players for their professional prospects are playing out of position. And it kind of hurts the evaluation process on them. But with that being said, like, as I've started getting into this kind of the scouting headspace and starting to look at prospects outside of their falling to the Knicks prospects. That's been something that's been clouding my judgment for the last 10 years, trying to figure out how these players fit on the Knicks. Tata doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He can shoot it, and his handle isn't bad. I think with a few years, in the NBA, he can become a lead guard. I don't think he's going to be somebody that you can come in and play right away. That's going to be your lead point guard, but I do think he has the traits to develop into that. His athleticism is something that everybody is kind of harping on. Like, they put out the stats. He had, the highest body fat out of all of those guys and things like that. But I mean, to me, it doesn't affect him on the court really, right? He's still a bigger point guard and he can make those plays. So it's all about what we said earlier is going to come down to fit. And if there's going to be a team that's going to be patient with him becoming that lead ball handler and that lead point guard, I think in that where you're going to get him between that 12 to 20 range, you'll be getting a good value there.
Yeah, the shot diet that Tata is going to have in the NBA is kind of my issue or the biggest problem because for the shot diet he's going to have, shot profile he's going to have in the NBA, he's going to have to shoot the lights out to really even sniff anything relative near league efficiency. So that's kind of my thing with him. So it'll be interesting. But I mean, staying on the Kentucky boys, or I mean, quote unquote Kentucky boys. Shout out to Shaedon Sharpe and his legendary none and done season. So I mean, it's pretty interesting to see where he's at, and he's definitely the biggest wild card mystery man, as many people have stated. But I mean, for you at least, CJ, and I think my question is, especially with the draft age changing soon, and it's not a position that you really envy after or just particularly in the past, especially when it comes to like evaluators having to really, whether it was like the KGs, the Kobe's, when the high school guys were coming out previously, and you didn't have as much of tape on those guys playing in high level organized games. So I mean, what do you make of Shaedon? Obviously, this is a long term pick if you are taking Shaedon anywhere inside the top 10. And if you watch the EYBL stuff that he did, like it doesn't, it's not hard to see why his handlers shut it down on him early. Because if you do dig into the tape, you can see the inklings of a really dynamic scorer in the future. But long term and the possibility of what Shaedon can be and who he is, for my question for you, CJ. But like in a like let's say he does hit on his upside, like how high of this class in terms of that upside can that take him when the dust settles on this class?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason that he's being talked about as this top 7, 8 guy without ever playing a season of college basketball and coming straight from the EYBL. He's a really talented prospect. And I think the first couple of weeks of his, he declared for the draft, all that stuff, and people were, I thought, a little bit too high on him. Like maybe talking about him, but 4 over Ivy, like all that stuff is crazy to me because you have the solid production of like Jaden Ivey is, Shaedon Sharpe could even become Jaden Ivey. Like he's already that prospect that we're talking about. But I think it's kind of flipped in the other direction where I think consensus might actually be a little bit too low on him now because I'm seeing a lot of him like falling to OKC at 12 and stuff like that. And he really is a talented prospect. And in 2022, I don't think you could be like, he's some mystery guy that no one has ever seen. Like these NBA scouts are watching EYBL tape now. They have guys on staff directly to watch these games. And everybody saw what he did. And the fact that he didn't play this last year at Kentucky doesn't make him any worse of a prospect. He just makes him a harder evaluation, right? So if your staff is coming to you telling you like, look, he's not Jaden Ivey, nobody's Jaden Ivey, but after the first 4, 5, 6 guys in this draft, he's your best shot at getting a guy that could be a top 50, top 60 star player, then I would consider taking him. I think I probably have him somewhere around 7, 8 right now. And I think that's a nice, reasonable middle ground on Shaedon. I don't think that he has that true superstar potential because he's not at this point like a high level game processor. He's not like throwing passes out in all directions, stuff like that. But he's a really impressive finisher. He's a high level athlete. The handle isn't quite where you want it to be to project like that high level impact. But that doesn't make him like a bad prospect. It just takes him out of that tier of like superstar prospect to, I don't know. I don't even think he's like a 2-3 years away guy. I think he's going to be raw at first because he hasn't played in a year and a half, or I mean, a year, and he didn't play college ball and all that reasons and stuff. But I think he's like a reasonably good NBA prospect, and I'd have no issue taking him top 10.
Yeah, this brings me to like thinking about back in the day when you used to have to scout high school players. That tape is tricky to me just because at times these players are on teams that are just so much better than the competition that they're playing, and if you're an NBA prospect in high school, that shows. Like you are head and shoulders you're a man amongst boys when you're playing these things. So it's like I tend to rely sometimes on that college tape because you're playing against some grown men at that point, like those super seniors and seniors. You're gonna have to play against a bit better physical specimen. With that being said, Sharpe, his physical attributes alone, with the 7-foot wingspan, the explosion, and all that leaves you like kind of jaw dropping. Like you're like, all right, this kid has kind of that kind of athleticism, and his tape backs that up. So now when it comes to not playing in a year, it's like, all right, he hasn't played against better competition this year. But like you said, the NBA scouts have been scouting, those rec leagues, the freaking, entertainer basketball classics, like all of the AAU circuits, all of that. Like they're there and they're watching him play. So from what I've seen on this tape, the highlight reels and the tape speaks for itself. Do I question him? Like I wouldn't take him obviously in the top 5. I think that's where it comes down to. Like those guys, I value production, and they produced on the next level. Those five players that you would take ahead of him. Now, if your team that's taking a flyer with somebody on some star potential, maybe not superstar, like you said, I think anywhere between 6 and 12 is good value for him, and it's just now how much time do you give him before you give up on him? And it's like, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, I mean, see, my question for you on this, and it kind of just gets into more of like the levels that they're playing at. So it's just like, how do you go about it? This is just like something I struggle with because these points that we watch them, that these kids, each competition level, it's always good to see them go up against their peers and guys that are actually high level NBA prospects. But when it comes to like like the different circuits when it comes to like Pangos, grind session, like Peach Jam. Like some of these sessions are like there's things that can be taken away. Some of them are just like glorified like pickup games and like back and forth, up and down. So I mean, for me at least, I love like because if you watch Shaedon, for me at least, like watching like if you can get a sample of these kids playing at like the FIBA games or something, those are much more fat like schemed and circuited. They actually be like held accountable. So like when you're watching like AAU tape or like high school tape, how do you go through parsing through like what actually can be taken away and what might just be noise and like just purely like using your athletic gifts to shine against other guys which you can't get away with at other levels as much?
Yeah, that's what you have to look for. That last bit that you touched on. Are you winning with athleticism and strength, or are you winning with skill? And I think that's the big differentiator. And like Raz was saying, the guys 1 through 5, 1 through 6 for me are like production, right? You have that next level college production. And what we're the only thing we're doing here is narrowing our range of outcomes, right? You're more likely to be a high level player if you've produced at a high level in college than you are if you produce at a high level in high school. So we saw a bunch of these guys this year that we thought were going to be high level college players from high school, and they didn't necessarily have the impact that we thought they were going to. Patrick Baldwin Jr. was one of them. But that doesn't mean that that Shaedon isn't going to be a good prospect. You know, it's riskier because we have less tape on him. But if you just say like, I know less about him, I'm less sure about him, so I'm just gonna like leave it to someone else to pick him, you're gonna leave value out on a table. There's a certain spot where the value proposition is worth it. And in my opinion, it's not over any of the top 6 guys in this class who were both high level high school players and also high level college players, right? We check both of those boxes. But when you have some of these guys that aren't necessarily like star bets, at a certain point, you're talking about, is this guy going to be impactful enough over replacement level to like take the swing? Like Keegan Murray, I think is a great basketball player, but Keegan Murray is also more likely to be a guy that slots in as your 5th starter, 4th starter, maybe a guy that in his realm of outcomes, he's like rotation player, stuff like that. Like Shaedon has top 2 player on the floor, top 3 player on the floor upside. And also in some of his outcomes, like he's just a rotation player. It's not like every single time he's either an all-star or a bust, you know? So he has a wider range of outcomes because he doesn't have that college production like Raz was talking about. So you just have to balance that all out and find the spot where you are comfortable slotting that in with these guys that we know more about. Because we just every other one of these prospects, we have seen more games in more different contexts than we have of Shaedon to this point.
Raz, I mean, I'll start you off on this, and then CJ, you could pop in here. Just like finishing up like final big boards and everything. But what guy or what prospect made you scratch your head the most? Trying to put them in their proper tier. About like 10 days out, obviously, Raz. But which guy was you just had the most difficult time getting a read on so far?
That's a Jaden Hardy's probably one of them. He's somebody that I was high on coming into this draft cycle, and it's been brutal for him. Personally, I think in the G League, and that's kind of tanked his value. And then CJ mentioned one earlier, I believe Patrick Baldwin, somebody who, like, dude, coming into this year, I'm like, yeah, he's somebody that. Obviously I didn't think we were smarter than everybody else. Like he wasn't like a super sleeper coming into college, but it was just like one of those things where like, all right, he should be able to get some buckets where he's going. And we're now going to have to decide, because of the competition he's playing in college, are these buckets now to the point where the production is that overvalued because he was playing against weaker competition, or is this something that we can see translating into league success? And that went poorly. In the collegiate level.
Understatement.
Yeah, like it's like I don't know where to put him. I don't know where to take him. Like I seen some mocks with him falling literally to the second round. So it's like I think if he falls to the second round, you got to take him. Like you have to try and take a flyer on that, and maybe hope last year was a mulligan and you can get him right with your NBA program. But as of right now, like he's anywhere between, on like some boards I've seen, he's anywhere between like 21 to like 35, and that's a scary place to be in as you're trying to make a draft pick for a specific player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. PBJ is tricky. Like, I still don't know 100% what I'm doing with him. I think I'm leaning towards like kind of throwing out the college film a little bit because he was playing a completely different role than he's going to play in the league. But like, still, I mean, you want to think that he will be able to dominate that level of competition. But I can see the, freshman primary guy with not great teammates. Like, he's not a great passer. He didn't really fit the role that he was trying to play there. He's more of like an off ball catch and shoot scorer for his future NBA role anyway. But I'm still like you, kind of confused on him. I don't know exactly where to go. The two non, like Caleb Houston's another one. Like he was good in high school, bad in college. Like tough to do. But the guys
Oh
that
yeah.
actually like played well in college that are giving me a little bit of a hard time are Malachi Branham and Bryce McGowan. It's kind of for similar reasons where I like big versatile guys. I like wings that can dribble, pass, shoot, defend. Obviously, that's the ideal. So I struggle with these combo guards that don't really have the versatility of skill set, and there are two elite skills that each one of them has that kind of like, am I too low on this guy? Like what's happening here? And for Malachi, it's the efficiency. He's such a deadly efficient guy. The pull up, getting to the rim, like everything. And if he stays that efficient, like I think I will have missed on Malachi. But also, I don't know if he's going to be able to carry that scoring load at NBA level with that efficiency. And if he doesn't, like I don't think he's good enough at the off ball stuff to be like a lottery pick. Like he's not a great defender. He gets bumped off screens very, very easily. And if he's not carrying that heavy scoring load at the efficiency level that he was in college, I think he might be a little bit like let some teams down. But he could also just like carry that scoring load. And I look like an idiot and he's a top 10 player. What he was doing in scoring efficiency as a freshman is huge. And then for McGowan's, it's his free throw rate. Like can get downhill, get to the rim, draw fouls at a ridiculous rate for a freshman, and then is still big wingspan, all of that stuff. And it's another thing, like, does he have the versatility of skill set to hang in the league and get consistent rotation minutes if he doesn't have the ball in his hand and if he's not scoring? And those are questions that I have about both of those guys right now that kind of have me a little bit lower on them, but also like I could just be wrong, and they could hit the scoring threshold, hold on ball, and then they're both looking like lottery picks in 5 years. So those are the two guys I'm struggling with the most that aren't like PBJ.
Yeah, no, the PBJ one is crazy. I know we did a preseason or early season mock draft, and I know I had him in my lottery. One of those guys that, yeah, I was super him and Caleb, to be honest, two guys that like Caleb at Montverde, he just fit that role so well. And Montverde is a machine in the factory, so I guess it's just I don't know. The role that he's going to be in the NBA kind of could be similar to that. But yeah, with PBJ, man, it's just like I'm still buying this shot. I think the athleticism concerns kind of popped because he kind of he didn't stand out on a mid major floor, which kind of could be an issue. I think even going back to the FIBA tape for a guy like PBJ is the game was real simple for him, and he really did. He had a really good summer before the college basketball season. So I mean. Right. I mean, yeah, the thing about and also yeah, Malachi and Bryce are also super interesting, hard evals. I mean, Bryce McGowan is one of the shiftiest guys in this class. So I think like like you said earlier, just in terms of processing, it'll be interesting to see where he gets. But yeah, there's a world where he's just like a lights. If he can improve his finishing and efficiency issues, there's a world where he's a consistent scorer at the NBA level, and he really has that ability to change gears and stay low and really give you like 2 or 3 dribble moves while getting downhill, which is a really good basis for one of your combo guard slashers to have. But I mean, Raz, we can stay on a couple of those guys who had an interesting season, but for you at least, what did you guys make of Max Christie? And he's one of those guys that could possibly fit into the back end of the first round, or possibly like go mid second round. Possibly, I don't recall. CJ, I mean, I guess maybe you could have a better synopsis on this than I would. But do you recall a draft that like had so many guys with like a wide range to where like you can see them going legitimately 20 to 45 for like 25 guys in that range. So I mean, what you guys make of the Max Christie this year and where he might end up?
I'll go first. Max Christie was the vein of my existence the whole year as a Michigan State fan. Like he's just somebody who highly touted, obviously out of high school, and did not shoot the way he shot in high school and college at all. He has good defensive upside, and Izzo played the hell out of him. Izzo gave him the minutes, so I'm hoping that he was able to work through some of those growing pains. We didn't see it come to fruition, obviously, because if he hits one jump shot, they beat Duke. So I'm still like living through that pain, but whatever. Max Christie has the intangibles in the frame and the shooting touch to have a successful NBA career. I personally think he probably should have went back, and that could be selfish. Obviously, everybody should kind of go get their money while it's available. But to your point, Sean, like he's slated between 20 and 45. Nothing is solidified there, right? So could he have benefited from an extra year of refining his skills at the college level? Probably. So where I'm at with him right now is wherever any draft evaluators are talking about taking Christian Braun, I'm taking him the pick before it. Like that's basically where I'm at in my evaluation with it right now, because I don't think Christian Braun is going to be a better player than him. And I've seen Christian Braun going late first round. So I think Max Christie between 25 and 30 is probably the value you get there. That's where I would feel comfortable taking him right now. And who knows, he'll probably hit the league and the shooting touch will return as he'll play with a bit more spacing and won't have as much responsibilities, and he'll be able to grow into himself, and he's still pretty young. So he could end up being a top 20 player in this draft, if not better, but I'm not letting Christian Braun go off the board before.
Christian Braun got some sneaky athleticism to him, man. I'm gonna pat myself on the back with him, but it's a little sneaky. But what did you make of Max, CJ?
I think that it's funny because we just mentioned Caleb Houston, and I've kind of been subscribing to the theory that like you have to play a role above what you're going to play at the next level. And like Caleb Houston was a super role player in high school, right? But then wasn't really good enough in college. Like you have to be a star in high school to be projected to be that star, like to projected to be a starter in college. And Max Christie kind of plays a role player role in college. And my concern genuinely is just, I don't know if he's good enough. Like, I don't know if he has enough talent to be a consistent NBA rotational player. I think that his versatility in skill set is something that I really value, and his ability to play without the ball in his hand, right? Like, even at Michigan State, they didn't run everything through him, and you could see that he still had an impact on the floor. But I don't know. It's tougher because he's a freshman. I just don't know if he had the impact on the college game that is enough to project him to have any sort of impact on the NBA game. I'm with Raz for less selfish reasons. I would have liked to see him go back for a year or two and kind of dominate the Big Ten a little bit, or at least take that jump where you could project him a little bit, because the NBA is like notoriously impatient. And a 19-year-old Max Christie, I don't know if he's going to make an impact on an NBA roster year one, year two. And if we're talking about a guy that gets drafted after 25, if you don't make a impact year one, year two, there's not always a year three, So I would be a little bit more comfortable if I were Max Christie waiting until like you knew for sure you could make that impact at the next level. But that being said, like that's more talking about his projection, like talk about him as a prospect. I don't know where he's at. And obviously, like if you can go get your money and you're going to be a guy that gets a guaranteed contract, there's no way that any of us could hate on that. So I have no issue with him going. But I think from a prospect projection standpoint, I would have liked to see him get one more year.
And it's just like physically, right? He's not physically imposing in any sense of the word. Like he's a smooth 6'5", 195 pounds, and 195 might be like generous, right? Like that's soaking wet. So it's like he's to be a defender, even to like show like defensive prowess, and even make an impact and stay on the floor that way. Like he has to get stronger because the two guards are going to bully him in the NBA. So it's like he either is going to have to become a lights out shooter right now to stay on the floor, or get bigger and become a better defender. And it's like, can he make that leap in the little time that he has to get ready? That's what concerns me, and that's why I think he should have went back. Just in terms of just being able to get bigger and strong, because the Big Ten is a rough conference anyway. So it's like, now if you're able to now show us that you can physically hang and physically dominate that conference, at least the toughness aspect, and we can take that over and project that to the next level. It's just like, there was nothing that stood out on that film that's like, yeah, bro, like you should go live right now and go to the NBA draft.
And he might have been he could be like, he had a much better chance of going lottery next year. Like I think about like even somebody like Terquavian Smith, who probably has a chance to go lottery next year. And I think Terquavian definitely has a little bit more juice on ball than Max has for sure. But he probably could find himself in that range next year if he did come back to school. And I think just on investment for a guy like him, yeah, because I think if Max Christie does fall outside of the first round, yeah, it might not, like you said, he did that third year, which is pretty huge. He might not even get there if he's on a on a second round contract. But a couple of the guys that I would love to, that I have to dig a little deeper in, that I would love to get your opinion on, CJ. There's a couple guys that I've been thinking about. I mean, one, John Montero is a guy that I've especially in terms of just my preseason priors and going back and checking out the tape that he had. He showed some pretty interesting thing playing in a professional league in Spain as like a 16, 17-year-old. I think it was the Adidas Next Generation tournament that I watched him at, and he's one of these rare players to where he's not a big guy, but the production is kind of superior to his tools. And I don't know, I kind of just threw away the Overtime Elite tape. I'm not taking that too serious. I mean, whether it's right or wrong, but I think just what he shows from an under, I think he's one of those guys that I would throw into one of the more interesting guys who, he would have a ridiculous level to get to as a to even sniff a lead ball handler, a lead playmaker, just because of his diminutive size. But what did you make of John Montero? I think I'm probably a little higher than consensus, but the defensive issues are like kind of like it's probably a non-starter for a lot of people.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there at the very end with why I'm almost out on Montero. The threshold that he has to hit to be a lead ball handler in the NBA is just ridiculous, at 6'1", and there's really no other role for him. Like, he doesn't have enough supplementary skills to keep him on the floor if the ball's not in his hands. And to the point that, like, even we saw last year with Sharif Cooper, I thought Sharif Cooper was, in every sense of the word, a better prospect than John Montero was or is. And Sharif went mid-second round and got a two-way. Like, the NBA just doesn't care about 6-foot guards anymore unless you are the absolute cream of the crop, Trae Young level prospect. And I don't think Montero is that. And to the point where, like, I don't think he's going to get drafted highly enough in the league for this to end up mattering, because I don't think he's ever really going to get a shot, honestly. Like, I think that he's going to be a guy that kills the G League or overseas or wherever he wants to go, because he is that, like, quadruple A point guard. Like, he's not quite good enough to be the lead ball handler for an NBA team, but, like, in other leagues, he would be that guy. Honestly, you talked about the OTE tape. Like, I like Don Barlow. I would take Don Barlow over Montero right now. And, like, if you had to play them one-on-one, Montero would probably win. If you had to play a 3-on-3 pickup game, you're taking Montero. But Barlow's versatility and size just gives him something that I think he can hang his hat on in the league. And even though I really like watching Jan Montero play, because he's fun. Like, he's got stuff that he can do really, really well. He's a good basketball player. I just don't see the NBA translation to his skill set, which sucks. I was upset when it hurt Sharif last year because I love Sharif, but the NBA is just out on small guards that don't have that versatility as skill set, which he does not really have.
It's tough. It's hard out here for a 6-foot guard, man. Like you said, it's really tough. Raz, is there anybody else you just wanted to shoot the shit on in terms of like guys that you have thoughts on or would like CJ's opinion on?
No, I mean, I wanted to just piggyback on the Montero stuff. I think he's somebody, I did watch that overtime tape, and I don't know what to make of overtime tape right now. I think they have to continue fleshing out that process. But Montero, to me, right now, obviously not an NBA league guard, but I think he's someone, if he does go overseas to, like, the big leagues over there, the Euro League over there, and lights it up for 2 or 3 years, he could probably try and find a way to make his way back, because, like, just like you said, he's fun to watch. His passing, and he's gotten better. He's gotten better as a lead ball handler and as a passer and as a playmaker. So he could probably try and find a way back over here as that second or third guard off the bench for a team, just to run it in spurts. But as of right now, I don't think, like you said, he's going to get drafted high enough to matter. And then just another prospect for me is Kendall Brown out of Baylor. Somebody I was high on early in the year, while Baylor was kind of still rolling, and the athleticism is there. But where do you think he projects, at the next level? I mean, is he somebody that should have probably went back? Like, where do you think is the value for him? Where do you take him? And what do you think he projects on the next level?
I think I'm higher on Kendall than consensus is. He seems to be falling to like a late first, early second guy. I would feel pretty comfortable taking him in the late teens, which I think is easy to say in this class because there aren't very many guys that like come out and grab it in that range. Like we were saying, it's pretty flat. I like Kendall. I think that he needs to work on his like processing ability. I think he got back cut a lot on the defensive end, and the game never really slowed down for him at the college level to the point where he was consistently reading it correctly. He's a good cutter, but he's kind of like an over cutter to the point where he was only really cutting because he can't shoot. So he was just like sitting out on the perimeter and would clog up space almost by cutting at the wrong times. But on top of like, even with all of that said, like those are a couple of the downsides. He actually was a freshman that did impact winning, right? And he has that next level athleticism to go with a little bit of like versatility, right? Like he can put the ball on the floor a little bit. He can pass really, really well for a guy that doesn't have the ball in his hands that much. And I think the size, athleticism, vision combination makes me a little bit more comfortable projecting him into somebody that impacts NBA games. And it's crazy to like, we talk about John Montero and we see him with the ball in his hands and all the crazy things that he can do. And then like just visually, it feels weird to watch that and then be like, yeah, but Kendall Brown's like a far superior prospect, even though he can't do any of that stuff. Like he doesn't have that bag. But the way the NBA is going, like there are even for like point guards and stuff like this, like the star players, it's no longer that there is just a nominal point guard. The star players have the ball in their hand 80% of the time. If you're the best player on the floor, you're the quote unquote point guard. So what matters is how you play off of that guy, right? And I think Kendall is one of the better players in the draft at playing off of the star, which I think is better for his projection than somebody like Montero, who's just like not good enough to be the star and doesn't have any of that off-ball value.
Yeah, no, I think just pretty interesting. I mean, one guy that we haven't really gotten here to yet, and he's actually, I think he has a argument for one of the most. I think he's kind of being underrated by some segments of draft Twitter, or even somebody who's probably higher on boards, NBA boards, than like draft Twitter, draft community boards. But what are you doing with Jalen Duren, and like what do you project for him? Because he's one of these guys where like in a couple years, if he came out a couple years ago, possibly I think I could see a world where like regardless of what happens, he ends up like a top 5 pick just because his tools are that tantalizing. And if you like, Jesus, I don't know. I feel like I'm hallucinating, but no, I mean, it's just that might just be like early morning shit. But there was a picture of him. I think what was he working out for? He was working out for somebody, and like you just see like muscles on muscles. The kid is absolutely ripped for like I think he's like what 18 or just turned 19. But what are you doing with Jalen Duren, and what do you kind of project him at the NBA level?
He's that dude, man. He's a guy. I would take him top 5. I think he's going to be a top 7 starter or top 7 center in the league. I have him 5 right now. I flip-flop back and forth between him and AJ Griffin at 5 and 6. And we talked about narrowing in the range of outcomes. And he's not going to turn 19 until November. He played this entire year at a very, very young 18. And production at 18 and as a freshman is just like such a floor raiser. People talk about ceiling with Duren, but like his floor is ridiculously high just by nature of being a productive 18-year-old in college. And when you put that with the movement skills, like he moves really, really well for a big. He's got flashes of passing. He's not a good passer right now, but he tries it. He's 18. I don't care. Like at that point, I just want to see the flashes on a bad, or let's say a weirdly constructed Memphis team where he was put in Yeah, he did have a point guard, and he was playing with like two centers at all times in Minot and Williams, and he flashed passing. He's one of the best movers for size in this class, and he did it all at 18. I think that you're right that that whether it's draft Twitter or NBA teams or whoever's low on him, if you, I think that he's a pretty lock top 8 pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a potential star. I think outside of the top 4, he's the most likely potential star um, in the class. I'm a huge Durant guy.
Yeah, like I love Mark Williams, and like just tinkering on the final touches of the board. I'm like, all right, we're kind of getting a little too cute here for putting him over Durant. I love Mark. Mark was the Mark Paolo 2-man game was incredible, and like I think that just shows like if you give like pair Mark Williams with somebody who could pass, and I think he's gonna have a pretty good career. But yeah, the stuff that Jalen Durant can do is just next level. I think he has a completely different upside as a prospect. So yeah, I mean, you guys just
We
talked
talked
me into
about
something.
Yeah, sorry. We talked about
No, go
Cal
ahead.
putting guys in weird spots for being a prospect. Like Durin was in a weird prospect spot at 18, and he made it work. He was like ridiculously productive for being cast with 2 different centers and no point guard. They had Bates like running the show for the first 12 games, and he couldn't throw an entry pass to save his life. And he was in a weird spot and was
Oh
way more
man.
productive than he had any business being. I think I'm in. I'm glad you brought him up because I've just been waiting to gush about Durin to somebody.
Raz, now go ahead, Raz.
Nah, that Imani. Every time somebody says Imani Bates, I wanna like throw myself out the window just because it's like one, he's very talented, but the point guard Imani Bates experiment was not anything we needed to see. Nobody needed to see that, and it hurt Memphis for those first 12 games. Like
It
that
hurt
injury,
Emoni too.
that fucking injury that he had saved Memphis season, unfortunately, right? Like to say that to say that, like, and I'm never here to hate on children because these kids are children. They're literally kids. But he should have went to Michigan State. So that that's where I'm at with it. But no, Durant is. I think he has the ability to become a better rebounder than he already is, right? And I think some of his rebounding got cannibalized just due to the roster makeup of that. And I think to see him on the next level as someone who has the ability to get stronger, as scary as that is, because he, or like Sean said, that picture that came out with him working out, like it looked like David Robinson. So it's like one of those things where it's like, does he continue to get stronger? His instincts will get better, and like you guys said, he's 18. He doesn't turn 19 until the season starts, and the season would have already started. So his ceiling is high, his floor is high. Now it's just like where are we now in the NBA? A process of where are we taking him? Because we love to say, people love to say the big man is dead, but like we're seeing it right now. We're seeing it like they're not. Either you're super effective on the low post with rebounding, blocks, and help defense, or you're a Jokic or an Embiid right now. So like there's 2 molds of centers, and he's probably gonna fit the former, the first one I just mentioned, but like he has, the sky's the limit for him.
Hey man, I mean, CJ, you just triggered me before when you brought up entry passes and Amani Bates, because I had a thought like recently I was like, yo, these kids, like a lot of kids don't know how to throw an entry pass anymore. And I'm like, I was never like, I'm not even good at basketball. The one thing I could do is throw a pretty good entry pass. So I'm just like, man, Raz, we losing recipes over here, man. Entry pass is like, that's like day one fundamentals that you should be able to take, man. So yeah, that took me back to a dark place. But yeah, we could wrap up on a couple of the guys that we wanted to touch on before we get you out of here, CJ. Once again, appreciate you, man. It's been a dope conversation, dope episode. People are gonna enjoy it. A couple other guys that's just been tough to project for me. I mean, not I wouldn't put him in this class, but I just want to say shout out to Dalen Terry, because I really I know everybody stayed for the Benedict Mathurin, but I think I'm a huge Dalen Terry fan. I'm probably moving him up a little bit more. But what do you couple guys here that I would get your opinion on? Another guy that I just enjoyed when we talk about playing with swagger and just kind of being underrated, and we talk about some of these European guys to where that was kind of the thing with me, because they pigeonhole a lot of these European prospects and they throw them, or they say like, oh, he can't really fit at the NBA side. And I think about the Luka cycle, to where like I didn't have to watch Luka for long to know. I was like, yeah, he's not your run of the mill, a bashful European prospect that, the lights are going to be too bright for him. I think that was kind of obvious with Luka. Some people are just going to hate, but if you actually sat down and watched Luka, you would have known he's not like anything we've seen before. But a couple guys I would like your opinion on. Gabriel Procida, man. I really enjoyed his tape. I don't know where I'm gonna rank him and have him on my big board, but two guys I would be interested in was Procida and Leonard Miller. Like, what are you doing with those two?
Procida, I think, I don't know if this is an option. I think it is with this contract. I would like to stash him. I would rather stash him than take one of these young guys and have them, like we talk about Max Christie, Caleb Houston, have them take up a roster spot for 2 years and then fall out of the league. I'd rather stash Procida for 2 years, let him develop physically a little bit more, because I do think he's not quite there yet at it for NBA physicality. But I'd rather stash him for 2 years, not take the roster spot, and then bring him over later. I do think that he's a good prospect. I have him somewhere around 40 right now. And Leonard Miller, I this is probably unpopular on draft Twitter these days, but I just don't think he's ready. I think that he is a good long-term prospect. I don't think he's really close to an NBA player this upcoming season. And I think, unless I missed the deadline on this, I think he's probably going to go to the G League. I think he's going to play for Ignite, and I don't think he's going to be in this class, because I think that he and his camp were kind of looking for a promise somewhere in the top 20, 25, and I don't think that they received that promise, because he looked pretty shaky at the combine. So I don't think that he's a bad long-term prospect. I just think that he's a long-term prospect, and I'm a little bit less interested in paying him 2 years to develop on my bench when the team that's going to end up giving him his second contract is going to be the one that's going to actually benefit from the pick. So I'm lower on him, more just because of like present value of skills. I don't think he has, but I'm definitely interested long term.
I got one question for you as well. Which one of these prospects that you've been with your board we'll see falling out of the draft entirely, but we'll get signed to a training camp deal that may be able to make a roster? And I know that's kind of like a crapshoot there, but
I think a couple of guys. Look, I'm going to throw 2 or 3 at you that may not get drafted, but may play their way into some sort of contract. I think that one of them is Quentin Jackson from Texas A&M. I think that he's a five-year senior, so he's older. It took him a while to dominate, but those are the kind of guys that were targeted with a question like this, right? Like somebody that's going to impact the game right away, and he has the versatility and athleticism to, I think, end up on an NBA roster. I also think that somebody like Gabe Brown, you're Michigan State guy. I've got 2 Michigan States for you. I think Gabe Brown is interesting only as a shooter.
We were just talking about him, right?
Yeah. He's a really phenomenal shooter, and it's just going to come down to, can he hang well enough on defense? I was talking about him with someone a while ago. He would have been an awesome fit for those James Harden Rockets teams, where the role players didn't need to do anything on offense besides shoot or pass it back to Harden. Like he would have been a great fit there. And the guy that I really like that didn't even get a G League Combine invite, this is like a deep guy, is Bingham. I think Marcus Bingham was severely underrated at Michigan State, and he's extraordinarily versatile for like your typical drop big. Can step out and shoot a little bit, and I think he was just utilitized. Can't speak. Early morning.
8 a.m. Don't worry. It's 8 a.m. Don't worry.
I think he was underused. Let's use a nice easy word that I can get out at Michigan State by Izzo in that system, and I think that he has a chance to just be a bench big. I was shocked that he didn't make the G League Combine. I'm still shocked that he's not getting any sort of draft buzz. I wouldn't draft him, but I would give him a 2A in a heartbeat and let him develop it. He'd be a top 5 big in the G League day one. So I think that he was super underrated.
He's probably somebody we'll see in summer league that'll get some noise just between his shot making. Like he can shoot it, and he's very good at blocking shots. And I think just even a few more of that. I think of like JD Davison, who's probably somebody that should have went back to school, and I see him now at the super bottom of draft boards. But what's the homie name from Gonzaga, the point guard? Andrew Nemhard.
Yeah, Canada. Shout out to Canada.
Is he Like, is he going to sneak into the
He had an
second
awesome
round?
comeback. He had an awesome
Yeah, he
comeback.
did. He shot it well. He played well. Like, I think he sticks in the second round. Is he somebody you think can carve out a role in the NBA, or is he going to be
Monte
QB
Morris
overseas?
ish.
Monte Morris ish.
Yeah,
Monte Morris had a lot more athleticism, I think,
Yeah.
personally.
He's big enough that like it's kind of the same thing that we've been talking about. Like the backup point guard role is dead. There are only like 7, 8, 9, 10 teams in the league that still like employ a traditional backup point guard because typically just the best player on the floor
Yeah,
brings
that's
the ball up.
facts.
You know, like it's not you don't need to employ that guy that's just like get the team into the offense, blah blah blah. So if Nemhard's going to fit or stick, it's going to be because he shoots the ball well enough to be like a secondary ball handler and is able to survive off the ball, right? So that's his swing skill. Can he bring enough to off the ball situations to stick? And I think he can. I think he's going to be okay. I think that I would take him in the second round. And he's 6'5". I think the 6'5" is a big because you can kind of see him playing like a 2 guard or whatever, like guarding ones if your best player is like a 3 or 4 kind of thing. But I am less interested in those like quad A point guards than I think most people are. So I'm a little bit lower on Nemhard because I think all of the ways that he sticks in the league are due to his off-ball qualities, and he's a point guard. So most of his good qualities are on the ball.
Yeah, so we'll get you out of here. Last question. Because if I do not bring him up on this show at any point, I will not be able to show my face in Carnesecca Arena ever again, Raz. But my guy Julian Champagny, man, I've probably watched more of him than anybody else in this class, just in terms of like I even got a chance to watch him when he was in high school. But do you think he gets drafted? Because I'm a fan of his game. I think he's a really good shot maker. I think he's somebody that I could really see, putting up numbers in summer league and like I could see him like putting up 25, 30 in summer league games. And I could see him like if he gets in the right, he kind of feels like somebody who the Heat would stash, and all of a sudden he's like shooting the lights out, and it's like, oh damn, that he found another like late second undrafted guy that's going to contribute for him. So what do you think is his actual draft range for draft night?
I think it's tough when you're not a consensus top 45 guy because the draft gets weird after 45. We saw it last year. It's all like agent deals and stuff like that. Like there's no world where the top 60 prospects get drafted because at a certain point, guys want to like hit their spots in undrafted free agency, or guys are doing favors for Giannis's agent or whatever happened with the Bucks pick last year. Like I think there's just weirdness.
Sandro was that Sandro?
No, it was like I don't even genuinely have never seen the guy play. It was like Giannis Papagiannis or something. I was butchering the name, but I think it was like the 58th, 59th, 60th pick last year. It was just a nobody. But yeah, but I do think he has a potential to get drafted. And there's always one guy for me every year that I think I just get the wrong games with because I like his stats much more than I like his film. I've caught 6 of his games, and I don't see it. Like I like the individual skills; they just don't come together right for me. And I don't like the effort. And I think he has some bad body language on the court and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I love his analytic profile. So he's a guy that I'd be perfectly happy to take anywhere after 40. And he's like the right kind of flyer to take, the versatile wing kind of stretch 4 sin eater kind of guy. I definitely don't mind drafting him. I think I just caught the wrong games. You could probably tell me if you've seen more of him than anybody else. His film never really clicked with his stat profile for me.
Yeah, it was pretty on and off with him, and you could tell the energy level kind of waxed and waned with him. But yeah, weird things just happening on St. John's team. So it's just like that's kind of, he's not the first prospect that's got that read. So I don't know if it was just like a Mike Anderson thing or like what's going on with the coaching staff over there. But Raz, any last thing before we get CJ out of here, man?
Nah, man, I think we covered everyone I could think of that was worth talking about.
There's no one left.
Nah, I mean, we could do this for 2 hours if we really wanted to, but who's gonna listen? So we could ramble, but I mean, I appreciate you coming on, man. Like the insight you provided was great, and the draft is one of the most exciting and confusing and just anxiety-ridden periods of the year for me. And it's just watching some of these kids live out their dream of walking across that stage, and us getting to dive into the film is just the best part.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's always more people to talk about Raz. I didn't even get to my Yannick Sosa's. I have two pages of notes on him. So I mean, but that's neither here nor there. But with CJ, man, let the people know where they can check you out. I don't know if you have any content coming out soon. I know you're super busy in these next 10 days. But yeah, once again, man, thank you for blessing us with this incredible insight. We definitely got to get you back on here, whether that's previewing the next class or whatever in the future. But yeah, let the people know whatever where they can follow you and anything you got coming in the pipeline.
Absolutely. Well, you follow me on Twitter at CJ Marchesani. I keep it nice and easy. I don't think you'll see any more content from me on this class of guys. I am head first working on the 2023 guys, so you'll see content coming from me on them immediately after the draft. Probably YouTube stuff, just clip breakdowns, things like that. But besides that, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a blast. I love talking about it with you guys, and anytime you want me, I am always available for you guys.
Hey man, Raz, take us out of here, bro.
This has been the Draft Season Podcast. We will be back very shortly. It is a very exciting time of the year. We will holler at you. It's your boy Young Raz signing off.